Hi, I'm Corey May, Senior World Director at Haven Studios, and this is The Game Maker's Notebook. On today's episode, I spoke with Geoff Keene and Henry Feltham from Deepfield. They worked on the hit survival game Abiotic Factor. We chatted about the importance of relationships when working on a small team, how much the final game changed compared to the initial idea, how they used early access to shape the experience and marketing of the game, and much, much more. I hope you enjoy listening as much as I enjoyed recording this.
The core, the deep, the wires that weave, the heart, the eye, unbring the sky.
Dr. Mance, Cascade Facility.
We are charting new territory. I feel we have passed through the looking glass.
Warning, biological incursion detected. Complete. Failure.
We weren't prepared for this. No one was.
My prediction has come to pass. They come seeking anomalies. I fear they will only be content when this place is reduced to ash.
There's a million universes out there, and they're all trying to eat each other. Maybe it's simply our turn.
It's been a long road, but I truly think we're nearly there.
Ask yourself, has the moment arrived? Or will it wait?
Hey guys, I'm so glad that you were able to make time today to chat. I have a bunch of questions I want to ask you. One of the reasons I love the Academy so much is that if I play a game and fall in love with it, I can ping my friend Megan and say, I just played this amazing game. I really want to meet the people that made it. And she makes it happen. So I think that's kind of how this occurred today. I'm not really a journalist or a podcaster. I just love what you did so much. I wanted to just sit down and talk to you about it. So I hope that's okay. I don't expect to ask anything too crazy, but I guess we'll see where it goes. I'll just dive right in. I did try and be like semi-professional, so I like typed up questions and I'll ask them and we'll see what happens. Geoff, I want to start with you, if that's okay. We'll talk about the company and the game, obviously, but I just wanted to sort of know a little bit about you first, where you come from, how you got to where you are today. I don't know, just everything. Start from the beginning. I want to know everything about you.
Yeah, cool. So my name is Geoff Keene. A lot of people call me Zag. A lot of the community knows me as Zag. Everyone at work calls me Zag, so you may call me Zag if you'd like. I when I was probably in my young teen years, I was doing level design and things in Unreal 1. I was doing a bunch of StarCraft custom maps and things like that. I didn't really start game dev proper, I think, until I was about 17 when my father and I started making a game called Detour. It's just a very terrible game, but we got it on Steam back when you could still get anything on Steam without, I guess it wasn't as oversaturated as it was now. And then we did that for a few years and worked on a game called Unfortunate Spaceman, which is like a deception game. And then I worked with a publisher, New Blood, with Dave Oshry, who I think was on this show at one point. And he was like, hey, I got a friend in New Zealand who works at RocketWorks. Do you want to go work in New Zealand? And I was like, oh, that's funny. That's a good one. So it turns out he was actually not joking. So we zipped off to New Zealand to actually make some money, like making games instead of just kind of squeaking by. and I worked at Rocketworks for a couple of years. Worked on a couple titles and Icarus, and then I met Henry while I was there, and we sort of eventually left Rocketworks because the Dunedin studio closed down, and we were sort of looking to do our own thing. And now we're here doing Deep Field.
All right, I have two questions based on that I want to know a little bit more about. The first, and I think easy one, is why Zag? Where does it come from?
I think it was an old clan we had in StarCraft with my friends. We all had like Zag
Okay.
and then a number or something. I think I'm the last Zag. I think I'm the last one to keep that name, and then it just sort of stuck. It was just
All right. And then there was something else you said, and I think I heard it properly, that you make games with your dad.
I did. Yeah. So my dad's a programmer. He was sort of a more of like a corporate programmer, I guess, or like he worked in, the medical field or whatever, doing systems and things. But obviously he always liked games and stuff, and he got me into gaming. So we sort of initially started, making games. We weren't very good at it. I've learned a lot since then, and he doesn't work in games anymore, but it was definitely a good half decade of that with him. Yeah.
I don't know. There's something really cool about that. That's not something I've ever encountered before, like the idea of like father son.
It's
Maybe
cute.
Yeah. Well,
so cool.
well, it's interesting when you've got a good family dynamic or something, right? My dad and I are friends, I guess you'd say. But once you work on games together, it's very stressful, and you sort of it's a lot to put a group of people through. So I think it's for better or for worse, we both parted ways professionally, but we still keep in touch, so it's all good.
Oh, it's very, very awesome backstory. So it seems like you've always been working or wanted to be working in games. So you've just done it your entire professional career, it sounds like. Is that correct?
Academically I wasn't very good, like at school. I didn't actually graduate high school. At about 17 I started, or 16 or so, I started doing homeschooling, and then I sort of just kind of stopped, and then I went and made games, and I just kind of never stopped doing that. So I wouldn't say I'm very good at doing like homework. I'm not very good at with my grades. I might not even be very smart. But I definitely have always liked doing games, and that's kind of all I've wanted to do. I remember failing classes because I was just doodling like maps and stuff for like Unreal or whatever back in the day.
So it's always been there. Henry, I sort of have same question for you. I want to know, all about you, how it started, how you got into the games, and all that good stuff.
I'm a writer by trade and inclination. I just grew up. I've always written, always have, and I just something I do. And if I stop doing that, I get sad. I wrote a short story, in a New Zealand publication about 2005, I think, and it got quite a lot of coverage. And one day somebody rang me up and just said, would you like to try writing a video game? And I was like, hell yeah. Like, you're going to pay me to write? I don't care what it is. I'll do it. Plus also, I think I've always been interested in the technical side of writing and form. So the idea of writing on a new form is really exciting. I had no idea that I wanted or would enjoy writing games, but as I went through that process with this crew, who were like probably one of the first larger game dev crews certainly in Dunedin, but probably in New Zealand as well, I sort of came to the realization, I'm a gamer. I've always played games. I've always been into gaming, and it was a wild ride. I steep learning curve. And that company, we got about, I don't know, it was a game called Casebook back in the day. It was like a sort of a find the object game with a like actual video component, because we could do this amazing kind of almost like MRI creation of 3D spaces using cameras. And that folded. It turned into basically weapons contractors, as they always do. And you don't need a writer for that. So I went off and I worked in film for a while, and eventually Rocketworks started up in Dunedin off the back of Dean selling, I guess, Daisy, Dean Hall selling Daisy to Bohemia. And I just finagled my way into that and worked on a few projects. And yeah, remember a day when we were like, we really need another designer in here. We need a producer and a designer. And Dave Oshry came in as a sort of package deal with Zag. And to be honest, when we were first hiring him, I was actually a bit wary. I was like, where's this guy? He's quite a lot, eh? But I just sort of grew to when I worked with Zag and sort of came out the other side of Rocketworks with a lot of respect and a lot of love. And we decided, hey, well, like now that Rocketworks is sort of moving its sort of center of gravity to Auckland, and he hit it off to do that, push space in a bit and that kind of thing. And there was a while later, after I've did some film and TV work, I was like, what are you up to? And he's like, well, I'm in Deep Field. And I'm like, this sounds great. Let's do this. And we've been doing that ever since. I became a producer by circumstance, really. Just there wasn't much in the way of production capacity inside Rocketworks at that stage. So I sort of, as a narrative designer, I kind of filled the gaps, because I think narrative design, you tend to know what everyone's doing, because you need to understand how their bit integrates into the game, and the animators and the 3D artists and the sound designer and all that. So I was sort of talking to people, and before I knew it, I was a producer, never formally trained, but have been doing that role for Deep Field, as well as writing and narrative design with Geoff. Like we work very, very, very closely together on story, which I think sits at the heart of a lot of what we do. So I think like Zag is the other writer on Abiotic Factor. It's just that I'm the one who actually tends to type it out.
What is your relationship? I mean, you started to touch on it, Henry, in saying that you both, I guess, are writers, but at the end of the day, there's got to be, I don't know, a system or a way in which you work together or collaborate. And so I'd love to know more about that, like the division of responsibility and yeah.
Yeah, and the bottom line is that Zag's the CEO, and so if we disagree, like for any length of time, it's Zag's call, and it's got to be someone's call. And I trust Zag a lot. But the way is, I've got two hats, and Zag has about 30. I'm the production director, so I oversee at the high level, like, what people are doing and when. We have a producer under me who actually does the tasking and that kind of thing. And I'm a narrative designer, so I like. But the process, like pitching, like what the storyline for an update might be, but that storyline, that pitch in fact has been being gestated in sort of one nascent way or another, probably since almost the inception of the project. And every time we're talking about story, we're saying, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Do you think players want to visit this? We would love to go to this place. We'd love to see this. We think that this, if you had this experience, that would be real fucking dope. And when the time is right, I basically take, sort of pull these ideas together and say, this is the update where we're doing this. But that process is incredibly organic and really just one endless piece of storytelling that goes back and forwards between Zag and I. And then we just decide when the right time is to do X, Y, and Z. And we're just sort of building out the future continually. And I think it's very, very backwards and forwards. And then once we've actually got, once we know what's in there, I start saying, okay, well, we got these characters, we talked about having these people, and then I start getting more granular on it, saying, okay, well, what are they actually what's the actual outline of the story we're telling? Write it down, agree on it, and then what's the and then start generating scripts and that sort of thing. And at each stage, Zag reads through every element of it, gives notes, rinse and repeat. So we're never very far from being in a very similar headspace about it.
Mm-hmm.
Zag, anything you want to add?
Yeah, that's a quite specific way we work together. The real way we work together is I go to Henry and say, Henry, I have so many cool ideas. Here's what we're gonna do. And Henry pretends he's gonna constrain me as the producer, but then he usually just ends up agreeing. So I think that's how we actually work together. As a
narrative designer, I don't have to say no.
Yeah. I won't talk about it too much here, but like our next project, we're kind of getting into like the story of it and how we want it to go, right? And so currently we're in that really fun phase where just like we could do anything and go any direction with it, and we're trying to find that path and stuff. So I send him, every couple of days, I send him like a paragraph of like, all right, I had a bunch of thoughts. Here's what we're gonna do, and we just go back and forth. I mean, it's all very creative work, I think, and it all ties into kind of the design of the game too. Um, uh, yeah, it's we're sort of, I think Henry and I are probably spread across the widest part of the team. We're sort of, we have our hands in almost everything, at some level.
I do wonder because so you're both CEO and working on the creative, and then Henry, you're both a producer and narrative designer. And those two, like the CEO and the producer, are normally the people that say no to everything that the writers want to do. So how do you know when to take on or put on, put on or take off hats? Or is it because you ride those lines that you're able to, I don't want to say like constrain yourselves? Or do you find, I don't know, each of you arguing with the other half of yourself when you're trying to put these things into the game? I have to imagine there's some tension there, both internally and between the two of you, depending on what hat is on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we pivot quite a lot between kind of more creative ideas and things, and sort of the technical side of how we run the company. Just this morning, I was kind of giving Henry a bit of an earful about some production stuff that slipped through. But at the same time, like, I'm also like, hey, Henry, I have more ideas for this other stuff we need to talk about. I think we compartmentalize pretty well. I don't know if that's perfectly healthy, but we're really good at compartmentalization and moderating our scope early as well. We've been around the block a few times. We've seen a lot of projects go off the rails. We're at the point where we know if a feature is like way too big or if it's going to be a problem. Like, we can see those coming. And we occasionally get caught off guard, but not much. A lot of ABF's development was very carefully planned, and I think we actually hit our scope targets really, really quite well, which I don't think a lot of game devs can say. So we're pretty proud of that. Definitely.
I feel like there's also like an eternal tension, and at least in our team, between the role of a producer to say, look, guys, no. But also the role of the producer to figure out how to say yes. Say like, this is awesome. How do we actually make this happen? And by nature, and maybe because of that that narrative design kind of producer conflict in my own head, I try and move towards yes as much as I can. Besides, if Zag's got his heart set on something, what the fuck does it matter what I say? It's gonna happen.
It is another question. Were there ever during the development of the game major disagreements between the two of you in terms of either a decision to be made or a direction to go in? And I know you say, well, at the end of the day, Zag's CEO, so what he says goes. But like, were there times that you were able to successfully fight for something, or were there times that Zag talked you off a ledge if there was something that you really wanted and he helped you see another way through?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's always disagreements, but I mean, there's nothing, I can't easily call to mind something where we hit a real brick wall with each other. There are like ongoing issues, which are eternal, but more sort of like human and not like specifically between him and I. It's more about like managing our team, which is always where I guess the human element will make things more complicated. No, I think we communicate well. I think there's a lot of respect. We don't shout at each other a lot, but we have some very, very frank conversations, and we get there because we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure out like what needs to happen here, what's good for the game, what is the answer, and we're both vectoring towards that generally, rather than each other.
Yeah. I'd add to that. I'd say, and you kind of already said it, I guess, but I think we usually know what the problem is, and it's usually not like something the other person did. It's actually there's just a whole stress about managing a whole team and things, and I think there's not a lot of people for us to vent to. There are other directors, and they have their own kind of segments of the project and things, like we have QA and art director and all that. But I think at the end of the day, like, we have one goal, and we know that the stress and issues and the venting is to each other a lot, and maybe at each other a little bit, because uh, there's not a lot of other people to do that to. We can't like vent. I can't vent to like one of the artists, you know. So we tend to. I think there's definitely like a burden there, kind of like a mental toll it can take a bit. But I think we manage it okay. I think we do okay.
So I think under all of it, like as well, there's a real like the foundation is one of like I think we're both quite grateful for each other, and
yes.
the relationship and where we've got to. So like it's hard to go too wrong. But you know, there's definitely stressful times. I mean, this is game dev for fuck's sake, right? It's hard. Games are fun to play.
Not always fun to make. Are you close outside of work, or is it primarily a work relationship? I'm just trying to get a sense of like, I don't know. Are you
asking?
Are you friends outside of the office? Yeah.
I mean, no. Henry and I are friends. I don't like hang out much. I don't really hang out with anybody much. I'm a bit of a hermit. I moved into like the woods.
Our interests are quite aligned as well, and
yeah. Well, we
and like,
we have a lot
socially, like Zag's actually one of my favorite conversationalists. I could there's certain things in the universe. There's only a few people I know who know how to talk about in the way that works for me. We were sitting in China and over breakfast, and Zag was like started asking me. He was looking around. It's like he was having a thought. He's like, so like he was eating like noodles for breakfast or something, and Zag's like, so like, what is like? I'm trying to figure this out. Like, what is the purpose of society? And I'm like, man, I love you.
Like Shanghai did a number on me. Okay, I don't know.
I'm so here for it. Yeah, it's good shit.
No, I think there's something really interesting there. I know that on the projects I've worked on, I've had the most success when I consider the creative director of the project my friend outside, right? Because you could, to your point, you can have those more frank and difficult conversations with a friend, I think, in the way that you can't necessarily with a coworker. Maybe that's just my personality, but I find it much easier, right? When the person
100%.
that's ostensibly my boss is just a boss and not a person that I know or respect as a human being, I think it becomes much harder, especially given how, to your point, like difficult and contentious and hard making games can be, that I think having that relationship makes a difference. I'm just so fascinated, and we can talk about it a little bit more later. There's something and whether it's intentional or not, that felt like very effortless in playing Abiotic Factor. And I'm sure that the production was not like easy, but you even started to say that like there was a plan, you followed the plan. And I know all games like have their ups and downs, but I don't know, for whatever it's worth, it felt like there was, I don't know, a strong friendship or understanding at the heart of it. Maybe that's just me reading into it, or because I'm biased.
No,
you're so much,
you're not. You're not reading into it too much. First of all, I don't look at myself as Henry's boss. Sometimes I get bossy, but I look at him as a peer. Like there's 5 directors at our company, and I don't look at them as like I'm on top of all. You know, I'm doing all this. I think we have a much better kind of friendship and understanding. I mean, honestly, like, okay, so like, let me walk through real quick. So Henry, I sort of became friends with at Rocketworks while we were working there in the studio, and we went through quite a hardship together, which was the whole dissolving of the Dunedin studio. And I think that definitely kind of strengthened that bond a bit. Connor Moran, our art director, he started working with me on Unfortunate Spaceman. He liked the game and he followed my old stuff. I completely skipped my Dead Linger chapter, by the way. My bad. In my backstory.
I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that, so I was just gonna like.
I'm very happy to talk about it. I just forgot. Like I just like zipped over it. I'm not very good at talking about myself.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah, I'm not very good at talking about myself, so I don't have like a elevator pitch of my life planned very well. I should have rehearsed before this. Anyway, so Connor Moran is our art director. He became the art director on Unfortunate Spaceman because he followed my the Dead Linger stuff back in the day, and he's like, this guy seems really cool. He seems genuine with his community. All this, he tells me this a lot. I don't know why he loves reminding me of this. And then he jumped into one of my streams while I was working on Unfortunate Spaceman, and I think I made him a moderator, and we started talking a bit, and we ended up playing PUBG like every night for 6 months or something. It was crazy, like when PUBG was on the up and up. And we just became like best friends basically. So our art director is one of my best friends for sure. Our QA director used to be a partner of mine actually, but she is now just our QA director. So you could say we were close at one point. That's Kate Colvin. We have Tim Ponting, who's our business director, and he's been a very, very good friend for many years, and also helped us get through kind of the RocketWorks dissolution here in Dunedin. And so yeah, I would say, like, is the company run by friends? I can't say, I don't know how Henry's friendship is with other people, but like I know what my friendship is with everyone on the team, and it's quite close. At the head. So saying it's built by a bunch of friends.
I don't see how I can
wouldn't say.
produce without being friends with everyone. Like you've got to be. I mean, I personally need to be friends with people to work with them, and I find ways to do that.
Yeah,
because you need, like you say, you need to have that relationship, and I think all of us, the director, it starts from the directors on down.
Yeah.
All right. So you open the door. So I do want to know, not specifically about necessarily Deadlinger, but you worked on a bunch of other stuff before this, and so I'm really curious if coming into this game there were, lessons that you had learned or certain things that you took away from previous projects that you wanted to make sure, got addressed on this, right? Because I feel like sometimes we learn so much from the things that go wrong, that I'm assuming that there were things that helped set you up for success, or at least less chances for things to go wrong this time around.
Yeah. I would say everything we did set us up to where we are now. I mean, excuse me. I would say everything I did wrong with the Deadlinger, every scope creep, every mismanaged thing, just pretty much everything we did wrong is all stuff we applied to Abiotic Factor. And same with Unfortunate Spaceman. There were so many community missteps and updates and scope creep and other things that I just shouldn't have done. And we applied every single lesson. And there were so many, I couldn't even list them. I mean, it's the way we talk to the community. It's the way we manage our tasking. It's down to like just how much communication we require from the team. Everything. I mean, it's top to bottom, just made us exactly who we are. Everything, every bit of advice or feedback I give to Henry, for example, is stemming from my history of all that stuff. And
Definitely.
And I think it's safe to say, like, listening to the past is the only reason that ABF was a success.
Yeah.
Well,
a couple of like examples I could give. Yeah.
10% was looking forward.
92.
Yeah.
10% was accurately identifying the market from which we could draw from the past.
Yes. Yes.
The couple of examples, just random examples that come to mind. I worked a little bit on Spaceman near sort of in the latter stages of its development, but not a lot. But not anything like we learned. Don't do async co-op. It's really hard. But all of the lessons we got from, through that process, mainly from Zag, Kate, Connor, on running large scale multiplayer games. That's huge, right? And that's also your kind of credibility when you're out there looking for funding, saying, "Hey, we've done this before. It went okay. We can do better." I think one of the foundational things in our company is just the love for and the delight in co-op experiences. We've learned over time that's what we want to make. That's what we think the best experience in gaming, but maybe even one of the best experiences on the internet is, working together with friends to solve problems. So that's something we learned from earlier gaming experience, both as gamers and as game makers. Those were huge. I also think we knew the joy in building fun worlds, Like the world, the spaceman world is rich and ridiculous, right? I mean, I think when we brought that ethos forwards into ABF and they just turned it up, whilst also kind of turning it down, like trying to hit a really even tone, that kind of thing, which I think really contributes to how the world has been received. Because storytelling,
that less is more storytelling, right? Where we we have this really rich, detailed world, but we only give the player kind of pieces of it. To say we're inspired a little bit by like Dark Souls or Elden Ring would be a an understatement.
Let it live in their heads, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
and just what the like story is like, and this may be something we can get into down the line. Is like just how important story is for us, narrative.
I do want to dig into it in like a couple of questions, so be ready to talk about that stuff. But I definitely agree with you. I'm very fond of saying that it's much better to have fans angry at you for like what they don't know than to have them mad at you for what you've told them, right? Like let them be frustrated that they don't have all the answers rather than being furious that the answer you gave them is really shitty. So
we've got both. Don't worry.
I've done a fair amount in my life as well, so I get it. But I think you're right. Like the I want to know more is like it's a good carrot. It's a good hook. It's a good motivator. I know even when I was playing through the game, like stopping at all those terminals and learning like a little bit more about like what was in that room and like what happened here. It's nice. It's nice. I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. So it really resonated for me. So yeah, let's start talking about the game. I think I'm interested in how it started. Like when did you know that this was going to be the next project? Like what was the spark? Like yeah, how did it begin?
Yeah, so I think I'll be totally honest and say exactly where it started. I think I've always been a big Half-Life fan. Obviously, we have our Half-Life inspirations, right? You can art style and things. And there was a moment I was playing. I think I was showing my partner Sven co-op because she'd never played Half-Life before, and I was like, we should play through the co-op Half-Life stuff. And I was sitting there like in the game. We were playing just two of us running around or whatever. And there was a moment where I was like, wouldn't it be kind of funny if you were just like looting the vending machines to survive? Because there's these vending machines in the game that spill the stuff on the floor, right? And that's been the thing ever since is like underground facility, looting vending machines. And that was that idea that stuck. And I just like jotted down a couple sentences about it. Oh, you could do this, ride some trams, whatever. And that game in my head at the time isn't what we made. But it definitely spun into what we made, and I think there was a time, Henry, how long was it? A few months into development where we sort of found that loop. We kind of connected and we just had this, there was this moment, Connor and I were playtesting and I think we had gotten the robots in and we were struggling to kind of figure out what the gameplay loop was and how to keep it engaging. And we had like, loot the stuff, eat some food, kill the robots to get an item to open a door. And like that night, that playtest is when I came back to the team in the morning and Connor and I were like, it was the best playtest we ever had. Like, this is the game right here. And we just followed that. There were so many other questions to answer, but that's sort of where it all began. It was just like, how do you do a survival game, make it not a very large area to explore? Because, we can't just do sprawling procedural landscapes or something. And how do you keep it engaging, in that small space? And the first time I think we felt really engaged
today.
Cool. Yeah. So I think the moment we connected with kind of that loop, that's where it all began, down the path into this whole thing that we made. Yeah.
And then we started to touch on it. Like, how was development of the game in general? Like once you, I guess, hit that moment where you started to see what the game could be, and I assume, like not too long after you started building the game, I don't know, was there a plan at that point? Did you start breaking down like where it would go? Like how did it
Yeah,
grow
I
from
would
that?
say the plan was pretty clear from the outset. I mean, we discover things. We always discover things along the way, and I think you're onto a good thing when the game is sort of telling you what it wants to be. And I think ABF was telling us from quite early on, from like that playtest, like, okay, this works or this doesn't. The one like an example would be like early on, we're like, we want you to feel like you're a scientist, right? We want to feel like you're a brainiac, but you're not brawny. You're smart, but you're not strong. And the progression curve was just too high, too fast. You got to feeling like you're just cracking things too swiftly. So, and the game was saying, and we were saying, the game was like, this is wrong. And Zag spent like a whole bunch of time trying to like figuring it out. And then one day, his partner Chris, who's our marketing producer, was just like, well, what if he didn't give you what if he just had nets to start with instead? And we try that, and it works, and you can feel that it works. And so the game that reinforcement loop where we discover what's working was always, that's been fairly clear to us, I think, the whole time. Plus, we've had a pretty clear vision from the beginning. I would argue we always knew how we wanted it to end. So when you've got like the ending to a story, it's relatively easy to move towards it. Well, there's that cliche saying you've either got the ending or the beginning of a game. But in our case, we had both, which meant we had like, there was always that, like, we're going from here to here, and now we're filling out the middle. But Tony from Epic said to us, like, I was looking back at the original pitch you gave us back in the day, the original when you were first talking about it, and it's like it's 1-to-1 with what you actually made, which I think is indicative.
I was going to ask about that in a little bit, but I guess I'll skip to it real quick, because there's a saying, at least in film, and I think it's true for games, that like you make three, right? There's the one you pitch, there's the one you build, and then there's the one that like goes into player or audience's hands. And so I was going to ask you, like, how different are those three things? But do you feel that it is the same experience, like what you pitched to what you built? Obviously not 1-to-1, but you see a through line. Like, it didn't change in your mind that drastically or dramatically.
Yeah, I think what my original idea was something a little more. I always think of it as more gray. There's something more gray about it, darker, dimmer. I think we had a brighter game in the end. So that's one part that I think deviated slightly. There were parts in the game, like originally I wanted to have no guns, basically, because we found early on in playing the guns were really overpowered. I sort of lost that battle over time, both to the community and to our art director. So, but we sort of compromised in some places, and I think we could have been more creative in other places too. I don't think we did enough like science guns and stuff. If I had to, look back, who knows? Maybe in the future we'll still add some. But I think the game early on we have one of these this old sketch of a scientist that Connor made, and he had a filing cabinet on his chest, and it said on the filing cabinet brains over brawn, and that was our motto through the whole thing, Bob, right? And every time we started straying from that, we'd say, remember Bob, and it kept us on track a lot. We sort of normally in the game, it's kind of a power fantasy and you're just like dunking on the enemy or whatever. We really had to invert that and keep it inverted the entire time. And it was tough, and it still is tough. Even just every feature we add, we're like, is that making the player too powerful? And that's the challenge. And I think that is a different game than I sort of imagined. I don't think my original pitch involved so many little gadgets and things you make and all this stuff. I think it was a much simpler game too. It definitely wasn't like a 3-year development game. I think I told Henry 6 months and we're good. Don't worry about it. He reminds me of that frequently, that I said that.
I'm putting on the tombstone.
Oh shit. Yeah. So no, you're dying before me, by the way. I'm gonna but I think I'm very proud of what we made, and I think I've made enough games at this point to know that you'll never make the exact thing you want to make. There will always be some compromises. There will always be changes. you kind of asked earlier about like how was the development. I mean, there were moments in development where we're like, this game is not working at all. How are we going to ship this thing in even a year, like in the state it's in? And also like, how are we going to ship this with the objectives don't work or something, like they just don't make sense to the player. How do we explain it to the player? And we came up with solutions. We're like, okay, NPCs are like signposts. They tell you where to go next. You got to find more of them. Sometimes we'll like add more NPCs in because we felt like, one, the world was a little too lonely, but also, players just couldn't figure out where to go. So it's like, cool, just have someone tell them. Maybe they say it in a poetic way or something, but that was one thing. Early on, we knew we wanted sectors. Like, okay, we want an office sector, manufacturing, security, hydro plant, whatever. That was all planned really early. I even have like gray box of the hydro plant like dam from like probably first few months of development. We were like looking at how to build that area out. And then we rebuilt it all when we actually got to it. But we had all the doors open originally where you could start an office sector and just kind of wander into sectors, and it didn't work. The game wasn't working. It was like too easy. We couldn't figure out how to keep the player from just like walking into a high tier sector and getting high tier loot right away, without like really lame restraints. Like, oh, you can't break that box without a tool that's better or something. We didn't want to do that. It felt too, I guess it felt too gamey. I guess it didn't feel as like realistic.
Too artificial.
The way we wanted. Yeah, too artificial, I guess. But we ended up going, okay, cool. So what if we did a more linear experience? And we're like, okay, you're gated at these points, but within that area, you can explore all over the place. And then you go to the next place and explore all over the place, like biomes or whatever. And that really, that sort of solved a lot of problems. But originally we were planning like the whole facility would just be kind of open and you could just wander it. But that comes with a million problems that our storyline actually solved quite well. So
I was going to ask about
stressful.
that. Because you had mentioned, I guess, that the story was a very big part of crafting the experience. So is it something that you started working on as early as just the sort of gameplay prototypes? You said you had an idea for the beginning and the end of the game, like early on. So yeah, where and how did that sort of work in terms of thinking about story at the same time that you were building? Like, what was that process?
Well, my first
we
pitch
had
was
an idea about always, right? We always knew where we wanted to go. Yeah, like I'm not imagining that, right?
No. I think my first pitch didn't have story. That's why I was like, 6 months, right? I was thinking like we could just make a fun co-op game.
Actually,
I was thinking we made this fun co-op.
I've got the
game.
original pitch right here. It's so good. It's so small scale co-op survival game inside a science facility, inspired by Half-Life 1, crafting survival game, but indoors, brutalism and trams.
Yeah,
6 months.
Yeah. 6 months. Boom. That original pitch didn't really have like a ton of story because I thought it wasn't really important. I was like, well, we'll have like the facility, and maybe we'll have a couple NPCs or something, but it'll be kind of more like funny, right? Like just like the Half-Life 1 NPCs where they're just kind of running around yelling and stuff, and they can follow you and help you. And then at some point, probably around the same time we were having like the door problem and all this other stuff, we got really heavy into like, okay, hold on, the story is actually like not just a small part of the game, it's actually the part we also enjoy about the game, is like there's like a huge tie here to the rest of the world. And Henry can probably talk more about kind of the evolution of that.
I mean, it's that slightly Dark Soulsy thing of like us falling in love with the environment and the way the environment was telling a story to us, and us wanting to know more about that story and then evolving it in our heads. And as we realized, this became like the story that we started telling was one of the mechanisms for guiding and gating progress. And it just kept sort of reinforcing itself that the story here, this world where we were creating, had a history, and we were kind of almost like unearthing it. And I think in the way we created it in the game is actually quite similar to the way the players experience it, which was quite rewarding. But we fell in love with it. And again, it's that less is more thing. Like we just like a world that speaks for things much larger than itself that we don't fully ever resolve. We're like it should exist and evoke ideas inside the players' minds. And then as we went through, I would also argue that it was the story that really started telling us how to make the game, like what needed to, what the experience needed to feel like and be, what the beat that where these beats needed to happen. I'm also like a big believer in like narrative design as a production tool as well, because it will tell you, you know, what your art assets need to look like. It'll tell you, if you're really tired, it'll generate you a list of audio assets if you let it. And I think it was enough of an organic process that it almost doesn't. There weren't like major beats in it for me in terms of the way we were working on it. It just felt like unearthing this thing where we started at A, and about here realized how important it was, and knew where we wanted to end. And so it was actually just a case of like building it as we went. And at each stage, we roughly knew exactly what we wanted to happen. Yeah, we invented new characters. We found, okay, the thing we want to do or solve here will be solved by this character X, and who is that person? Oh, it's Kyle Hill, you know? But it felt very much like unearthing something that almost already existed. And we were just sort of revealing it to ourselves and then to players.
Yeah, I think creativity kind of works that way, at least for me. It feels like I personally don't feel like I have ideas a lot. I feel like I just sort of arrive at them, and like they're always there. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I'm sure I'll look back in like a year at the next thing we're working on and go, yeah, that was always just kind of, the shape was always there. I was just trying to like figure out the edges of it, you know. That's a very good way to put it though, like unearthing it. Yeah. That's a lot how ABF felt, was just almost discovering the game as we built it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I mean, good design is like that though. Good design sort of indicates to you what it needs, and when you're straying from the path, if you are paying attention. And story is a huge part of that. I also think the big thing for us was that we were looking at a genre that is very story light generally. I mean, you've got games like Subnautica, Sons of the Forest that have these stories in them, but they're still quite light, and you know, and they're not necessarily co-op. But there we were offering an experience that was both co-op and had a story, and people were like, and we ourselves were like, well, if you had a story, and does that really limit replayability? Is it a risk? Is this the thing that are we actually being dumb here? Are we going to shoot ourselves in the foot? People are going to play it for a while and then bugger off. But what we discovered is that it's actually like the biggest hook in the game. I'd say that the level experience, the level design, and the story, which are hugely interconnected, right? This is what people say most often about the game. I love the level design, and I love the story. And then the replayability element is actually just the fact that if you play Abiotic Factor with different people, it's a different game. You experience it differently. If you play it single player versus co-op, it's a different game. So there is that churn, that replayability there, but it's almost like an epiphenomena.
I want to talk about the solo and co-op stuff shortly, but before I do that, I do want to just ask about the tone, because it's so to me impressive that you were able to strike this balance between something that has stakes, that is genuinely scary in moments, but then also has this, it's an absurdity to it. The word goofy keeps popping into my head, and I'm like, it's not that. It's not goofy. It's absurd, but it's also got like, yeah, there's like real darkness and then real stakes. It's so elevated in some points that it tilts back into the absurd, and so I wonder if those things are able to feed off each other. Again, if I'm just like making shit up, but like I'm so impressed that you're able to balance like comedy and
that gave me a really
drama.
Consistent and clear piece of direction very early on. Do you remember that, Z, what you said? Like, you need to repeat it. I mean, you were just like, look, it's the like the situation is like the game is serious. The game is a serious game, but the situations that players find themselves in and some of the characters find themselves in give rise to the absurdity and the comedy. And like that as a guide for like a writer, as a result, like just do that, was like, oh yeah, cool, I got you.
Yeah, the tone's always been so weird, because like, okay, so the game kind of started out as like, what if funny scientists? I mean, you've probably seen some of the scientist memes, right? Like the Half-Life 1 scientist guy yelling, stop, or whatever. You know, it's all over the internet at this point. There's kind of a zeitgeist of Half-Life, I think, lately too. which I think we correctly predicted when we started ABF. We kind of saw this sort of trending curve of memes coming back. But it started out kind of as memey, kind of funny. But when you look at Half-Life, even you see it. The scientists are quite funny. Maybe not totally intentionally. I don't think Valve originally. I think they even said in the documentaries they're like, we didn't like how goofy it got. But it's one of the biggest things people remember about Half-Life is it's kind of goofy. The voice acting's kind of funny, but people can also be like jibbed and turned into skulls and meat and stuff. Yeah. So it's like very brutal, right, and violent. And I think that was we sort of followed on that same trend. We're like, okay, so we sort of want things to be whimsical, but also gritty, and there's serious threats here. And then as we got deeper into kind of the IS stuff, the immurement subjects, which are, of course, are based or inspired by kind of SCP style things, which I'm a big fan of. I like cosmic horror. I like objects you can't look at or you go crazy. I like, gazing into the abyss type stuff. I like creatures that don't follow the normal rules of physics. Just things that manifest strangely to people and humans. And I think we all have weird dreams and things occasionally that make us realize the human consciousness and the way we view the world is not exactly how it probably is. It's probably just what we perceive, right? And so I like tapping into that just through all of our stuff, doing things that are, for lack of a better word, kind of fucked up. Like, having ISs that are just sort of way too messy for humans to be interacting with, and this organization Gate is trying to figure out how to constrain them and contain them and study them, and it's just this constant push and pull between the horrors of the universe or other universes even, and like our human existence, as frail as it is, right? And I think in ABF especially we make the player we make the player very frail, right? And we kind of, I think we almost sort of set up that, the contrast is very, very wide, right? Between the things you're up against and how unprotected you are. And science is here to save you, right? And of course that's, that gets into some of our story, like, is science, maybe have they gone too far this time type stuff? We have a lot of kind of conversations like that in the game. And Derek Mance, of course, delivers all of that perfectly, I think. And the bureaucracy behind it as well. Anyway, it's all. I think the whole thing is it's sort of wrapped in an irony, but it's a serious. We treat it very seriously as a survival scenario. It's just everything else around it is the absurdity and the dark comedy around it as well.
Yeah, well, and I just add to that
bravo.
There's no. Thank you.
There you go.
There's no people talk about comedy and darkness like they're opposed, but they're not really. They're the humans' natural response to like a lot of threats or terror beyond your immediate ability to process it is often irony, absurdity, like comedy, cracking dad jokes. I feel like they actually sit a lot closer together than people say. And I'm trying to think of recent films that have handled this really well. For some reason I'm getting Everything Everywhere All at Once as an example of what sort of tones will just sit actually quite comfortably together if you let them.
I love it. All right. So I think, Zag, it was you that said at one point in an interview that you're not the biggest fan of survival games. So I'm curious if that was like a misquote, or two, if there's truth to it and sort of how it inspired the decisions that you made in approaching. Because I think you're right. It is a survival game, but it dispenses with some of I think we would agree, the more tedious or repetitive elements. And so I'm just curious to get your thoughts on the genre and whether or not that was a true quote.
Yeah. I think a lot of survival games are really boring. It's a true quote. PC Gamer got it right. I find a lot of survival games very boring. I find a lot of them just ticking off boxes and going through the motions, and they got the hunger and the thirst and all this other stuff, but they don't have anything of substance to take away from them. You kind of, if you like grinding, you got the grind. If you like just kind of being in a world, you sometimes have that. I think a lot of games miss that part as well. We've all played like early access survival game number 27 in the forest with like trees chopping and picking up rocks. And then like there's no like wind or anything or ambience in the air because it's like not finished yet. And it's like, well, if you're going to ship the game out to the public, like make sure it has some of the mood and the atmosphere. I don't know if I'm that good of a game developer. I don't think we've like turned the survival genre on its head or anything and done some new thing really. But I think we know how to get our tone right and our mood and the atmosphere of the game. And I think like if you look at Arc Raiders recently, right, that's like 90% of the battle is just getting like a place people want to exist in, you know? And I think a lot of games really, they focus on all these mechanics, you know? I worked on Icarus, so I can talk about it negatively. Icarus has added like their 50th crafting bench to the game. And I'm like, that's fine. But like, where's the meat of it? I mean, they've added some really cool stuff on.
Right.
But my point is like that when I was working on Icarus, there were no aliens or anything. There weren't even planets in the sky. And I was in the studio, like I was remote from here, but I was in the meetings and I was like, guys, what a space game space aliens, what's going on here? Why aren't we, you know, and those came around eventually, I think. I haven't played it recently, but I find a lot of survival games are just sort of doing mechanics and more things and just flooding content in, but it's so meaningless and it's so it's just iterations of the same thing, and there's just something about the repetition of it and kind of I play one game and it's got the same mechanics, and I play another game and it looks different, but it's got the same mechanics that I just played and no story to like set it apart. And it's just like my personal, like I'll try out a survival game on Next Fest. My timer is like 10 minutes per game almost before I'm just like, you know, not interested. But I'm also a pretty harsh critic, not of my own work and other people's work, I think. So maybe that's just me. But I think it definitely is why ABF came out the way it did, is because there's so many things about survival norms that I'm not a huge fan of, and we try to avoid them at all costs, where possible. Yeah.
There's a couple of critical ones, right? They inverted the obvious ones, being inside rather than outside, being smart rather than strong, you know. And it doesn't take a lot to really kind of give the whole thing a completely different vibe. But I'd say one of Zag's strengths as a designer is vibe. Like, I joke that our company does two things. We make vibey co-op games, but it's not too far from the truth.
The point about vibe is really important, and I think you're right, especially to distinguish or stand out when, to your point, even about Steam, that like every day there's 10 billion more games on there, and I think vibe is hard to like quantify, especially for like bean counters. So I think it helps a lot that you are the CEO and also get to insist on vibes first. So I don't know, I'm just saying +1 to that. I keep doing that. I think it is something that helps one, distinguish your company and your games, but like makes for better product, right? Because we're all looking to escape into places, and the more, I don't know, personality or feeling of place or space that a game provides you with, the more likely you are to spend hours and hours inside of it.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you about, because was really interesting to me, is I put in, I want to say like 70, 80 hours into the game, and I still have more to do. But I've been distracted. I have work, and I don't know. I'm going to get back to it. But I played it entirely solo, and I feel like you were talking about how the games you build are really meant to be played co-op, and it's just interesting to me because I felt like my experience was enhanced by being solo and alone in there. Like that was just sort of the story I told myself, and now I'm really interested in trying it out with a couple of friends just to see how it changes things. But I am really interested. It's just interesting to me that it seems like you came at it from like a co-op first, whereas I still feel like the setup feels so much more, I don't know, solo, right? Even just like taking something like Half-Life as an example, it is about that like lone scientist thrust into this insane place. I'm trying to I'm wondering, and I'll just play it to figure out what some of my experiences would be like. I forget the name of the place, but when you're going down the hallways where the car is, and you've got the things spawning behind you, you've got to go through the portals into like the blood realm. Like, I don't know what that would be like with 3 other people. Like, that felt like very like near. Even being in Hydro, like, it was really fucking hard at first. And I feel like it may have been easier if I had had people. I don't know if the game scales, and so I would have had a similar experience. But I'd be curious. The thing I'm most curious about, or at least that you may have the information about, is like, do you have telemetry for the game? Do you know like what percentage of people play alone versus co-op? Do you find that it's weighted more towards one than the other, and then more interestingly to me maybe is like, do you also find that there's a difference in perception of the experience based on whether people play solo, co-op, or if it is similar? I'm just curious about all of that, and feel like you'd have access to that data.
So we do have a little bit of data. We did more analytics early on, and we kind of stopped as much recently, but we definitely did analytics during like our play tests early on before early access launch, where we had some closed play tests essentially. And it was really interesting because we found in the playtest more people played solo, but we found after release actually more people played co-op. And we were sort of thrown off too because we worked on Icarus, which had a really high solo player count. So we were sort of our expectations were set a certain way going into Deep Field and making Abiotic Factor. But one of our core pillars was always, it has to be fun in solo play. Like, it has to be. Yes, we're co-op first, but we had to make sure solo play worked, because we knew at the end of the day, it's hard to get friends together sometimes. That one guy isn't there, so what are you going to do? Just not play? Well, you go start your own campaign or whatever, right? So it's I guess, I mean, the experience is definitely different, and we do have scaling, and we do all that kind of stuff. I think one of the main things I find when playing with friends is we can delegate tasks, so you don't feel the burden is spread out. I mean, it's just it's the same as any game, really. I think is sort of, you feel less like things are dependent on you. You can offload some of that mental load and stuff, and so it's maybe less daunting a little bit. It's a little safer. It's harder to do horror with multiple players, which is why we thought the Layak was so great, because it sort of would scare one player at a time, and that worked out fantastically. Like, we have people still asking to remove that from the game, and we're like, no, that's like the heart of ABF. Like, we're not touching that. So
I did spend several hours trying to just get it back in its containment, and eventually gave up, and I just zap it with the light and farm the stuff. So,
well, I was reading a Reddit thread the other day, and they're like, actually, I kind of like the Layak. It's sort of like having a friend around, so I'm not, feeling as lonely. Just show up occasionally. I'm like, great, that's awesome, you freak. Anyway, no,
between solo and co-op is hard though. That's tough.
Yeah.
Like, it's not. It was always something at the forefront of our minds, right? Like Zed said, it's a pillar. I think in any given co-op game, particularly like survival games, making it fun for both single players and groups scaled up it's so hard for us. I mean, you get the natural kind of interplay between the solo player has more resources but has to spend more time doing stuff, whereas the multiple players have more manpower and can go out and get more stuff, but then they clear the area out faster and have to go further afield. But I think
you spend more time waiting. You spend more time waiting for your player to be done, or like I got to run to the bathroom real quick. On solo you don't have to wait for that guy.
But I'd argue that it's two very different experiences. And I mean, maybe not very different, but definitely two quite contrasting experiences. And you see people talking online about, hey, I really recommend if you play co-op, go and do a single player run. It's really different. And that goes back to that kind of replayability thing I was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is something inherently built in that way, because I think that when I eventually play it with other people, it will be a different experience, right? Because it's now not just the story of the place and the people in it, it's the story of the group that I'm I'm working with or fighting with. But there were definitely times I wish I did have other people with me, if only to like have someone to deal with growing crops or going fishing, because there were like things I wanted to do, but then I was pulled to like want to progress also. So yes, I am looking forward to eventually getting to do that. All right, what else do I want to ask you? I just a little bit about like the early access of it all and like how that does or doesn't inform the sort of development and evolution. Like, were there big discoveries during early access, or did you go into early access for other reasons? You mentioned playtest, but I assume those are more internal and friends and family stuff, and not necessarily based on stuff from early access. Or am I wrong? And there was a period where you were using that to like figure things out.
We did pretty solid playtesting for each update. So every update had a playtesting phase that we got data back from. Maybe that's not exactly your question, but I would say that there weren't so much discoveries in early access, except the discovery directly after early access, where people were like really, really excited by this game. I mean, I got this text from Zag like on the Saturday or something. He's like, "If I'm reading this correctly, it looks like 50,000 people have bought our game in the last 2 days," and we were like, "Okay." But the cycle was basically, drop early access, develop content, listen very, very closely to what people were saying. I mean, and early access was forced on us because we didn't feel like the game we could ship at 1.0 at that point would have been the game we wanted. So it's like, well, obviously it's broken up into sectors. Therefore, we had this luxury of saying, okay, the first 4 are looking really good. Drop those. People go through it, figure out what they like and where they're breaking it, what they don't like. Let that inform how you construct the next areas, and then rinse and then drop those, rinse and repeat.
Yeah, my take is similar. I don't think ABF could have been built the way it was built without early access. I think there were too many unknowns about, like, I think we, with a multi-year project, there's some luxury of shipping on early access without needing to. So we weren't bleeding money and needing to make sales immediately, right? So we did it very deliberately and in the time we wanted to do it. It wasn't forced on us in that way. It was forced on us, I think, in, like Henry suggests, in the design realm. Making a game over several years and seeing kind of how people pivot over time. I don't recommend developers just chase what the community says, but there is something about having a plan and then letting it sort of permutate as the community gives you feedback and plays it. And this is where that narrative kind of story, like linearity, kind of helped, where it's like, okay, office goes to manufacturing goes to labs. We could drop the sectors actually in chunks as we progress the story. And if we were a more open world game, I don't think that would have worked as well. It would have worked okay, but I think for ABF, it was almost perfect. It really was, it was a coordinated decision to go to early access, and we took a few risks with it. And we worked really hard to make sure those updates weren't too far apart. We got a lot of good feedback about how prompt we were in early access, because a lot of games that'll be like 8 months, no contact. I think what we built couldn't have been built without the community. Like it was critical.
Were there any specific things that came out of early access that like hadn't been on your radar that went into the game as a result of like talking to the community?
Yeah.
I mean, probably a bunch, but it was, I'd say it's 100 little things. I think all the big stuff and a lot of the quality of life, we were like, yeah, we want to do that. Yeah, that's planned. We anticipated their needs quite well. I don't want to like brag too much. I'm really not trying to, but like I look back and there's so many things we were like, we think this will be a problem, and it was, and we were ready for it or predicted it or fixed it before it became a big problem. And I'm really proud of our planning. And our perception of the road ahead, and early access would let us do that. Basically, if we don't do early access in the future for a title, we're probably still going to have some kind of core early access group that's playing it through development, because getting that feedback is so critical. I think way too many developers don't put their games in front of enough people who are really going to play it. They're scared, like, oh, if I give it access to 100 people, they won't buy the game in the end. They'll just use it as a demo. It's like, yeah. But if those 100 people don't play it, those 100,000 are never going to play it, right? Like, you got to look at the big picture. But yeah, and some of them were brutal. I mean, we had an internal playtest group that was doing all the updates before we got to them, and we had a couple people in there kind of like implode, like they're like, this game's shit, you're never listening to us, da da da, and they like fucking left or whatever, and they were probably right. Like, a lot of the stuff we were doing was shit, but like, we applied a lot of that feedback and we made it happen. So you have to get it's better to get that bad feedback as early as possible and not in like the Steam reviews, after you ship it. So yeah, but
it does also put you on the line, because you've actually got to service it, right? If you're in early access, you have to get those updates. You have to do what you say you're going to do, and there's a time frame. So you need to be quite rigorous with yourself and with your team about, hey, these are our goals. This is what we're doing, and we're gonna hit that date, and then we're gonna do it again, and then we're gonna do it again. And so it becomes you're shading into like live, not quite live service, but it's quite tight.
Do you have a dedicated like community person that liaises directly with them, or is it something that different people on the team jump in to do?
We have Chris doing our marketing and community management. She sort of wears two hats right now. But I also step in and do I just talk to the community a lot. I try to get on Discord and just answer questions. I usually like to do it in a way where I'll like grab a random question and reply, and it'll spook everybody, because they'll be like, oh shit, they're reading everything, they're watching everything. And we are. But
the Melinda Gates approach.
Yeah, the death audit or whatever. But we really, I would say, talking with the community and keeping them like pacified between updates is really smart. But Henry's right. It was shading into kind of live service. Like, hitting an update every 3 or 4 months is at our size was quite a lot. We definitely like ran the team a bit ragged. We're trying to sort of ease off that a bit, but we do know like people need updates. So it's, so we're scaling up a little bit is what we're really doing, to get more hands on deck. But I think without the community, like, we wouldn't have what we have. And so we better be talking to them and listening to them throughout everything. Yeah, it's been huge.
Very random, and maybe the answer is no, but was there ever anything that that large portion of the community was like, you need to do this, and you were like, absolutely not, and you sort of stuck to your guns on it, and it turned out to be correct?
Guns, actually. Firearms. Yeah. So we've had, I said earlier, I kind of lost the battle.
This feels like it's been a recurring thing, the guns.
Yeah. Man, so we had like, okay, you could get the pistol at the end of manufacturing, and then you go into manufacturing and you just start headshotting all the soldiers. And then it's like, okay, we'll put an accuracy thing on it. And it's like, okay, cool. But then players complain like they can't grind accuracy enough to fight the soldiers. And then it's like, okay, well, we need to give them other options, right? So it was this battle of like, how do we make guns harder to get, still able to get, still fun when you get them and worth it, but also not overpowered and making everything else in the game inconsequential. And like, that was the hardest thing. And I've had scathing reviews, on Steam and stuff, where they're just like, oh, the whole gun system's stupid. Like, why can't we just pick up a gun and run around like Gordon Freeman? And it's like, we're just not making that game. And it's been so back and forth. I mean, internally, externally, everything. I'd say I've mostly stuck to my guns on it. I don't think I succeeded completely. And I'm not so proud that we didn't come up with maybe some better alternatives. But it is what it is, and I think it kind of worked out in the end.
Yeah. It goes to everything, though. It goes to vibe. It goes to pillars. It goes to like the fundamentals of design. It goes to the experience that we intend, right? So like everything we understand is saying no, and people like I love our community to death. I'm so happy with our community. My God, they're wholesome, and I have.
I was about to say something mean about the community.
Also, no, I'm just something mean about humanity. Is that like people don't necessarily know they know what they want, but not necessarily what they need.
Yeah. If you give players everything they want, they'll have less fun. even if they're really passionate about it and they think the game sucks, it's like they're probably still having more fun than if we did what they wanted.
No, I think that's really fair. I think you're right. I think if you just dumped in a bunch of guns and made it a super easy, it would almost be like a cheat code, and then it would lose some of its appeal. For what it's worth, when I played, I rarely used the guns. I was so nervous about being able to repair them because the repair cost at the time seemed high. Now I've found more and more of them, but like it got me to just stick with like building melee weapons, mostly spears. I like the fast speed. The sledgehammers were too.
Yeah, I like the spears.
So
too.
I feel like I've like found my groove. I guess we're slowly running out of time, but I want to ask a few more things, so I'll just like skip some of this stuff. This one could be fun. Maybe when and how did you like know that you succeeded? Was it before launch? Was it at launch? Like, yeah, when was the moment that you were like, okay, we've got something here?
It was like a month ago when someone made a like 20 out of bounds secrets video about Abiotic Factor. And I was like, that's it. We've made it. We're now one of the games people are doing the out of bounds secret videos about. You know, they care enough to go look at all our lore.
Yeah. I saw people cosplaying for Halloween last Halloween, and that was like, oh, it's like that now.
Yeah, but more seriously, I mean, we knew we were onto something good. Early access launch was pretty good. And then 1.0 was kind of pretty nerve-wracking in a way. But it's maintained. What's weird about ABF is it's never had like a massive like huge mountain. It's almost been like it kind of went high and then kind of stayed high, and it's kind of been it's like how steep is the tail right now is kind of where we're looking at it. And it's just really healthy. It's just healthy, and it feels so. It doesn't feel like viral phenomenon, but it feels stable, and that's what we like. We like stability. As whimsical as ABF looks on the outside, Deepfield is this very tightly run, well-oiled machine, and we're very strict and stringent about production things and how we run things internally. And having a runway of X number of years to pay everybody and keep making games is like all I could ever hope for, and that's what we have. So when I think we looked at 1.0 bonuses or Christmas bonuses or whatever, and we were talking about the team and what we can afford and all this other stuff, that's kind of when it sunk in. I was like, oh wow, we have done well. And
it's hard to actually like isolate metrics in a way.
Yeah,
so hard to know, like,
because
we never really interact. You see it from so many different angles. You get like, someone made a video over here, or someone did some cosplay over here, or made like, you go and you see, like, we were in China, and like some guy comes up to me and he's some kind of scout, and he's like, check it out, and there's a video of ABF with like 1 million views on Bilibili, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea. And it's one of those things. I guess I'm like, it's sort of you vaguely understand every time you're confronted with new evidence of it, but once that's out of your face, the feeling goes away and you're just making the game again, and it's almost like fresh every time for me. Actually, every time someone comes up to me, or someone goes like, and who makes a game that I know, it's like, hey, I really like your game, and I'm like, rad. It's one of those sort of, it's like one of those myriad things that you infer from, but you never see that you never see the thing itself. Maybe, if that makes any sense.
And there's, to add on more, there's also like little moments where like I'll get an email where someone's like, this is my top 5 games, or they'll talk about I think some guy said he was playing with his dad or something, and there's just moments like that where you're like, there's some guy or some kid or something playing this game at the age I was playing games that had a huge impact on me, and it's like we're that game for them. I think that's all I could really want as a creative person.
So, has your dad played the game?
Oh yeah,
he's not very good at it. He didn't get very far. I keep trying to make him play it. He's just real busy.
He gave us good early playtest feedback. So you had a playtest with him, and you came out with some really good notes from that.
Also, he plays a lot of Valheim, so he plays their game.
Yeah. That's such a parent thing. That's like the perfect parent analogy.
Oh, I have one of those as well. Just quickly, like very early on, like almost like the second playtest we ever did. Maybe even like the first one where other people, like people outside the company, could come in. So like really, really, really early friends and family. I didn't know this, but my brother, and my dad jumped in and were playing together. And I don't know if they've ever played a game together, you know.
Oh,
But at that point, I was like, wow, that's like literally why I'm making games, and that's in hindsight, you should have seen that stuff and gone, I think we're onto something, you know.
all right. I mean, I think on that we can wrap it up. I don't want to keep you much longer. It's been an hour and a half. Wow. I really appreciate you both taking the time to sit down and, I don't know, humor me. This like I really appreciate it. I'm certain that the people that watch this will too. I think that your story, your company, your success, it's all very inspirational. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Congratulations. I'm so happy that it's all working out. I love your game. I'm going to continue to
Thanks,
keep
man.
playing it. I'm going to try not to be part of the machine that makes you produce content constantly, but like I'm excited to see more, experience more. And now you've hinted at there's potentially a new game coming someday. So now I'm even more excited. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. We've got lots planned. Yeah, we're really happy to keep working on
Me
it too.
too.
So
Me too.
it's good.
Awesome.
And we like talking about it as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for giving us the excuse.
Yeah, part two.
course.
We're gonna do part 2 at some.
Yeah, there we go. We can revisit it when it continues to be gigantic and talk about it like 1 year from now.
There you go.